Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Real Starfighter. And today, I have a question that I overheard just in my daily life, and I was thinking about it for a real long time, and now I finally have an answer. The question is why is the space combat in Star Wars so unique compared to the other franchises that came out after it? Now, Star Wars has been almost around for 50 years. And we have other sci-fi franchises that have joined the fray, like Battlestar Galactica, Babylon 5, Stargate SG-1. Those were some of the shows that I grew up watching on Sci-Fi Channel. And they utilized the zero-G space combat as a tactic. And Star Wars really never uses that. It uses it very rarely. And it got this conversation overheard. It got them thinking, like, why is the Star Wars combat so out of date or doesn't work or however have you? And I think there's an actual real answer to that. There's a real answer to it in the sense of production. And there's a real answer to that in terms of the canon of Star Wars. So let's dive right in. The first reason why Star Wars has the unique combat style it does is because Lucas modeled a lot of the combat after World War II movies. Now, after World War II was over and a lot of those veterans came home from fighting the wars, they had to find jobs amongst the US. And a lot of them ended up in the movie industry. And a lot of the movies that were happening were recreating the battles that happened in World War II so people could tell those stories and those stories can be preserved for a long amount of time. So the people who made it, the veterans, had all these World War II movies and they were making them, they were creating these battles, and they were using footage from World War II. And so when Lucas was younger and like being inspired and diving into these movies, um, one of them was World War II. And it was a huge inspiration for him, just like the Westerns and the samurai movies were, because Westerns, obviously, you see that in Han Solo, and samurais, you see that a lot in the Jedi. But World War II is, I think, a huge part of the basis of Star Wars because, the good and the evil, the Axis and the Allies was very prevalent in how those factions are represented in the movie. So there was that. And if you even need more evidence of that, there's this plane called the Stuka. This is a Stuka. If you look underneath, you'll see this half circle. It almost looks like an intake. That's actually a siren. And if you look at the near the landing gear, there are these propellers. Those propellers created an airflow with the siren that created that uneasy screeching, almost like nails on a chalkboard, that inspired the TIE fighter screech in Star Wars. So the Stuka is like basically the foundation of the imperial sound for the fighters. And I can't remember, but I remember having something like this, but it was like a picture of a P-47. And then like as you like flip it was like a flip book or like a card or something. I remember having it and it had like all the concept art. And it was this P-47 that transformed into an X-Wing or one of the concept arts of the X-Wing. So there was that. And I don't remember where that was or where I saw it. I think I had it was like when I was a kid or something. And it came in some sort of box or something that I had. The other thing too is that there's some similarities. For example, the ARC 170 is like the TBD Avenger torpedo bomber plane, which needed three pilots to operate. It had the pilot, the co-pilot, and the gunner. Same thing with the ARC 170 had that as well. So there's a lot of things in Star Wars that are inspired by World War II and even World War One. That's why when you see Episode One, the Naboo pilots look like World War One pilots. So there you have it. Lucas wanted a World War II look. For the in galaxy reasoning, number one, flying is like driving a car. It has to be universal and easy for everybody. You want an example of it? Luke Skywalker was able to pilot the Incom T-65 X-Wing because he flew a T-16 Skyhopper made by Incom when he was growing up. So the controls were vastly similar. So he was able to fly it. That's why they let him in on an X-wing going against the Death Star. Because I guarantee you, if I were to have the day he had and not flown a T-16 and then have to go fight the Death Star, I wouldn't be able to because they'd be like, "Well, you don't know how to fly this," and I'd be like, "Yeah, you're probably right. Like I couldn't learn it in a day, but like I mean, I have enough books and literature to know how to fly these things." And by the way, if you don't have these books are great. If you have the Haynes Starfighter books. These are awesome references. And I was reading them before I did this video, trying to find some of these answers. But that's one of the answers I found was flying is pretty universal. Like between these three books, I have the X-wing or the Rebel Starfighter, the Tie Fighter, and the Millennium Falcon book. They each have cockpit diagrams, and even though you could customize them, like the Millennium Falcon was heavily customized, they're pretty similar on how they're laid out. And the reason for that is because everyone has to fly in the Star Wars universe, just like everyone has to drive a car here. So, for one, it's a universal thing. And not only that, but we on Earth have humans. In Star Wars, there's aliens. You have Trandoshans and Wookiees and calamari and everything. So, you have to be able to create a ship that can house those aliens too, because even in Star Wars, money makes the galaxy go round, and so they want to be able to sell their stuff to anybody. So you have to have a universal way of flying. The second thing, or the second part of that explanation, is also comfortability. In Battlestar Galactica, they do the drifting because it looks cool. Babylon 5, they do it because they do it to a sense where it makes technical sense and they have their science that explains it. But Star Wars, they do have like choreographed maneuvers and signaler loops and Talon rolls. They do have some of their fancier maneuvers. Like you see them a lot in the X-Wing Adventures game, and they mention them a lot in the books, like the Rogue Squadron books. But you don't see them do that a lot because it's just disorientating. It's a lot of G forces. Like when you're in zero G, you're moving pretty fast, even though you don't see it. You're moving pretty fast and you're hitting a lot of G's. And when you're doing fancy flying, you're going to get yourself hurt. And the inertial dampeners can only do so much. If you didn't have those inertial dampeners, you'd be squished and crushed in the cockpit and you'd be dead just from doing a maneuver, just from accelerating too fast. So one is the inertial dampeners can't save you from everything. So you can't always constantly flip and turn and spin and all this other stuff. The second reasoning is just comfortability of the pilot, orientation of the pilot. For example, back to the battle of the Death Star, when they were going at the Death Star is a round object like a planet or a moon. And so the natural instincts for all the pilots was, oh, round object like planet or moon put underneath fighter. Orientation up, down. Now we have an orientation reference point. So a lot of the times when you see them have the fighter comp the way it is, it's because it's orientated to be easy to follow. If we just saw an X-Wing and a TIE fighter in space, it's like, okay, what's going on? What's happening? Like, they can spin and turn, but there's no point or reason to why. We just see turning in the darkness of space. And so now that we have a planet or some sort of reference point or ships that have reference point, like we usually see some of the ships like hyperspace coming to here and then they turn and they line up. Those type of things are because we're trying to orientate ourselves into the combat or make things work. I know we see some things in like Clone Wars, like Ahsoka turns the Resolute, or whatever, I think it's the Resolute, but her ship like this, so the fighters can come out and cover. Like that was smart, but it's still within that plane of like, okay, the bad guys are here, and we're gonna still be kind of on the same plane. And it's just an orientation. It's just a comfortability thing. So that way, the pilots and the rest of the combat squadron in the chaos of combat can still organize and orientate and help each other out. Because if you're trying to do zones and things and try to kind of reinvent that wheel while you're spinning and doing all the crazy maneuvering all the time, it's kind of hard to keep track of where this is and that is and those things. It's easier to orientate yourself to the ship or orientate yourself to a planet or some sort of object that you're able to kind of artificial horizon yourself in your brain so you know where everything is. So that's the or the brief explanation I have for why Star Wars has the combat it does. Lucas wanted it that way. Flying had to be universal for every human and every species in Star Wars. And 3, us as humans being of a spherical object of gravity planets, we try to orientate ourselves where up and down is for the ease the chaotic sea of space combat. And so there you have it. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like what I'm talking about, please like and subscribe. This place crawls, and remember to always check your 6. Thanks, guys.